I thought maybe I'd give you a preview or a synopsis of a children's sermon that I did this morning. I occasionally have a gadget bag with some props in. And this was one of them. And so what I would like you to do is identify what I pull out of here and tell me what it's used for. Very simple, right? The bug spray, what does it do? Keep the bugs off. Okay. Close. I should have two of them. I guess maybe one of them is under here. What do they do?
Protect your hands.
Protect your hands. Okay. How about safety goggles? Weed whacking, chainsaws, sometimes lawn mowing, whatever. Protect your eyes. And of course, we can't forget something that we tried to get our grandkids to use, but we didn't use. A bicycle helmet, right? Protects the head. Probably not nearly as well as a motorcycle helmet, but you get the general idea. Obviously, what I'm talking about is Ephesians chapter 6. Put on the full armor of God. Why? Because the armor of God is supposed to protect you. Even though Paul uses different images, even though he talks about swords and shields and helmets and breastplates and sandals, the theme is trust God to protect you, and He will give you bug spray, goggles, gloves, helmets, or basically what you need. Okay? And I'd like to think I made the point with the kids. Like I said, sometimes a picture is worth a lot of words. And it's sometimes hard to use new ways to illustrate was that a Corvair? I don't know. Kind of looked like it. I just got a little glimpse of it. We used to have Corvairs. I had one, Gene had one. I thought it was the greatest car ever made, but what do I know? Ralph Nader evidently knew more. James, chapter 1, starting at verse 17. Now, James is an interesting character. The book of James is attributed to the brother of Jesus, the younger brother of Jesus. How would you feel about growing up with an older brother like Jesus? Huh? Who always has the right answer, knows it all, knows what you're supposed to do, and tells you when you've been a jerk. I can imagine that Jesus and James did not get along, and Jesus is forever telling stories about the brothers and the older brother who's stiff and doesn't get along with anybody. And I'm sure James must have wondered, oh, is he talking about me? And he may have been. You know, I once saw a cup that said, warning, anything that you say may be used in one of my sermons. And I thought, okay, that's fair enough, fair warning, fair game, you know. And so all of a sudden, James, instead of being maybe the resentful brother, has an experience. Did Jesus come to the members of his family after he was resurrected between the time of the resurrection and the ascension? We don't know, but I imagine he did. I can't see that he didn't, or that he wouldn't. And maybe he said, hey bud, I need you. You're going to have to step up to the plate. You're going to have to help me take care of this ragtag bag of apostles, disciples, followers. I need you. Now, isn't that the appeal for all of us? Somebody comes to us and says, I need you. I need your help. I need you to help me fill out this form. I need for you to help me finish the stuff in the house. I need your help to show me how the plumbing goes because I put it on back. I need you. Okay? And James has a head on his shoulders. And he likes to have everything lined up. And, well, Martin Luther didn't particularly care for him because he thought he had the emphasis in the wrong place. But we'll get to that a little later. James, the first chapter, beginning of verse 17. Every generous act of giving, every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variance or shadow due to change. Every perfect gift? You mean we can't do anything on our own that's perfect? Well, it means we're going to mess up sooner or later. Yeah, I think that's what James is saying, but he's saying more than that. He's saying sometimes we get it right. Sometimes, well, in the fulfillment of his own purpose, he gave us birth by the word of truth so that we would become kind of first fruits of his creatures or of his creation. First fruits. Didn't matter how good they were, how bad they were, whether they were scrawny, whether they didn't taste as good as they should, or whether they were nice and ripe and full and rich. Who got the first fruits? The Lord. They were given to the temple. They were given as a sign of thanksgiving for what the God of all creation had given us. Sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we're too quick to, oh, I did it on my own. Oh, look what I did. Or sometimes, look what we did. Wow. You must understand this, my beloved. Let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. For your anger does not produce God's righteousness. Well, duh. I mean, isn't that kind of obvious? You get angry, you get mad. The filter that goes from your brain to your mouth all of a sudden stops working. Well, it does. And you say some things that you wish you hadn't said, but you can't take back. Or at least not immediately, not maybe as quick as you'd like to, but it's there. He says, your anger does not produce God's righteousness. And this is where James is headed. God's righteousness. Not mine. Not yours. Not this church collectively. Or this denomination collectively. But God's righteousness. Sometimes that's a hard thing to get our heads around. And therefore, oh, there he goes. There they go with the therefore again. If thus and thus is therefore. I used to hate that in geometry. What was it? 3 little dots, in a triangle. Therefore, if this is true, then therefore this has to be true. Therefore, rid yourselves of all sordidness and rank growth of wickedness, and welcome with meekness the implanted word that has the power to save your souls. Implanted word. James, what you talking about? Implanted word. A seed. Something that's there and grows. Something that we put in the ground and 2 months later we get, or 3 months later, we get tomatoes or sweet corn or peas or whatever. Implanted. Implanted has to be nurtured. And I guess James is talking about nurture too in the next section. But be doers of the word and not merely hearers who deceive themselves. For if any are hearers of the word and not doers, they are like those who look at themselves in a mirror. For they look at themselves, and upon going away, immediately forget what they were like. But those who look into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and persevere. I like to think the way that's worded is that it doesn't mean we get it right the first time, or the second time, or the third time. I'm not sure we got it right after 50 years, do we, Jane?
Not really.
But we persevere. We keep going. We try. We try. But those who look into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and persevere, not being hearers who forget, but doers who act, they will be blessed in their doing. If any think they are religious and do not bridle their tongues, but deceive their hearts, their religion is worthless. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God, the Father, is this: to care for the orphans and the widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. Unstained by the world. We're supposed to look different, act different, because of our primary relationship, which is with Christ. Yeah. Or as, I guess it's Rhonda Vincent did it most popularly, you can't love God if you don't love your neighbor. Okay? It's easy to play at religion. And it's hard to convince ourselves sometimes that we're being a jerk, that we're not seeing ourselves honestly in the mirror. Because I guess the worship needs to focus on our relationship, on prayers of healing for everybody and everything in this world. And boy, does it need prayers for healing. Between COVID and forest fires and hurricanes and earthquakes, we have enough natural disasters for 200 years, to last us 200 years. Prayers for healing. Prayers for uplifting the broken covenants that we've made with each other, with God, with our neighbors. We confess that we've let our anger get in the way of our service. We confess that we have not been diligent in prayer for those who are suffering, not only far away, but in this community. And we know there are folks who are suffering in the community. We know there are those that lack food. Look at the use that the blessing box has gotten since we put it in. We know there's a lot of problems out there. But there are opportunities to lift up in worship, to pray, to encourage healing. Yeah, to encourage healing. Does that mean, well, Luther had a problem, we know this, because he thought if we did be doers of the word and not just hearers, we'd slip back into a faith as works mentality. In other words, it doesn't matter what I believe or what I subscribe to, as long as I do good. As long as I do good, I'm okay. As long as I pay my tithes to the church, I'm okay. As long as I serve on the committees, I'm okay. As long as I do, I'm okay. Do you love your neighbor as you love God? Now, it wasn't, I guess, these acts that worried Luther so much, because Luther talked about them all the time. Being a good person, being a good citizen, being a good spouse, being a good father or mother to your children. You know, he was really big on that. He was one of the first advocates of the Christian family. I guess it was the belief that doing all this would save you, and that you weren't saved by grace and belief and by faith. That you weren't, like James said, saved by the implanted word that has the power to save your souls. The implanted word. The seed that's in there. What do we call it in our tradition? Prevenient grace. The little tiny spark in there that takes root, that's fed, that's nourished by the community, that comes out when people love us. And when people think that despite the stupid things that we've done, that we are children of God and He loves us. Isn't that absolutely amazing? And that He will bring us through. You know, what's the saying? If God brings us to it, He will bring us through it. maybe not without a lot of weeping and crying and tears and sorrow, but we will come out on the other side. When we were in Pennsboro, Pennsboro sits on the old B&O tracks that run down to Parkersburg. And it's amazing how many tunnels are on that railroad from, I guess, Clarksburg or Bridgeport out to the river. Some of them you can't see through. I mean, you can't see to the other end, is what I'm talking about. Some of them are really long. But you go in there, maybe with a lantern, maybe with a flashlight, maybe you're just being stupid and you don't take either one of them. Something you're eventually come out on the other side in the light. That's what he said. And that's what James echoes. And that's what Paul says. What's the one? Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. Why? Not because we got it right the first time, or the second time, or the third time, but because he forgives us and we keep, and permits us to keep trying. Thanks be to God who saves us by his presence, his death, his resurrection, his ascension, and his Spirit which has come to us. Amen.